Hey, Don here. I've got another BOLO video for you. We're going to cover magazines and some comic books, some newer stuff, some stuff that you should be able to find. These are hot right now. Prices fluctuate on some, but these are what's rising right now. There's some at the end which are going to be mostly comic books that most people don't even think about. Some of these are new from this year that are still real good money that do show up. So as always, I cut myself off. We're talking about the magazines. I want you to see the full, clear, total listing on this. Now, the title, maybe shouldn't have been used in the way they did. African American is fine, but I wouldn't have used the next term down the line. Unfortunately, it's in here, but these are really good items in my book. These are what's rising right now. There's a surge in a lot of the African American magazines and things of back in the day. They were scarcer also to find in the first place, still because of racial undertones. Subject matter to me doesn't matter. I don't discriminate against anything for any reason like this. I could care less on motives or racial undertones or anything like that. I'm not that type of person at all. So this is a really good one. I would buy this any day. I've purchased these type of items for, decades now. These always sell, but nowadays they're really going up there. This is the first issue of Ebony. $1,000. That's a legit thing. You could have just popped this up for, say, $1,200, $1,400 and might have sold it at that as well, too. Fairly scarce on this one. Here's another one. Most any of these early ones go for some good money. So $432 on this one. And the other line magazine is Jet. Any of the Jet ones do very, very well. This is just an issue, random issue. $400 on this one. 27 bids. These are good items. I snag up all of these. We're going to touch on some of the hip-hop ones as well. From the 80s and 90s even go well. So now, Hot Rod magazine, most people know the colorful covers. The ones you really want are the ones that are generic like this. And if you look at these closely, you can see that they've been repaired. This first one here on the left, it's got tape down the spine. It's the first issue. So it doesn't really matter the condition as well as you would think on other issues of it. And this one here on the right's been holed to put in a binder also. Now, I don't think the other one has. No, it doesn't look like it. Here's another one that's been holed as well. Not in the greatest condition, but again, these are early issues. 11 of the first 12, $900. Now here's Lucky Peach. This is a complete run of these. It only ran for a year or two, so there's not a ton of issues. You will run into these occasionally, and most people won't think anything of it. This is a modern day 2000, I think, and 11, 2012 era. They don't show up. Magazines were dying. People still shoot magazine runs out there and hope that, something goes. And this is one of the ones that did fail, but they are well collected. It was well loved by the people who liked this run. $750. Now, Newsweek did a Bitcoin face one, and this one's fairly scarce. I've seen this one in the wild, so I know it shows up. Never anywhere near this condition. This is from 2014, $734. And I know a lot of people say, hey, this is just a one-off, it's not going to happen. It has 15 bids, and every one goes for some good money. $695, same one bid. Cryptocurrency, this is like the dawn of magazine coverage in a national magazine. So this was really interesting. This is one that most people don't mess with Newsweek, honestly. I guess that's the point on this one. There are other issues of Newsweek that go for decent money, but this is modern day. It has no label, too, so if you notice there's no label, this is a newsstand copy. Some of the labels now, though, on the newer ones come out with like a gummy, gooey thing that you can just peel off and it won't damage the magazine as well. There are some indents here, if you look there on the left, that make me kind of wonder if there was a label there at one point. But either way, $700 basically on this one. Now, High Fructose is another one of those that only ran for a few years. It's kind of out there. A lot of these foodie magazines, which is what I would call them, are outsider art related also. A lot of tie-ins with outsider art, as you can see just by looking at the covers. And that is some of why these go for some decent money. This is the whole run. I can't remember the top center one, but there's a girl, she does postcards, and that is her artwork on there. You can type in postcards and hand-painted, and I think those will show up some of her artwork. But really interesting line. $500 for 46 magazines. Now, I'm bringing in Nintendo Power again. Now, the first issue has skyrocketed in most of these, so you really got to pay attention to these, in all honesty. And I've had people ask me on this specific magazine run again, and this one's just key. You have to grab these early video game related ones, and I've got other ones in here we're going to show you, but this is almost $400 for the first 6 issues. Back to food again, Foodie Magazine, 1986, 13 issues, art culinaire. A lot of these are gaining in popularity with like Hell's Kitchen and Master Chef. So the art culinary magazines like this are one of the ones that I always look for. Most people pass them up dollar-wise thinking to flip them, but people do buy them for the recipes in them. So, you know, it might have some competition to purchase these, but they're not buying them for the most part. What I've personally seen in the wild, what I've run into for anything other than cooking abilities. So $350 on this. It's only 13 issues. Voodoo. Now, again, gaming magazines. One's talking about the future of gaming back then. This is from 1998. This is the first issue, mind you. $330. Voodoo. One of those ones that people don't think is going to be worth much. A lot of those tech magazines from the 80s and 90s and PC magazines are now hot. And most people are missing the bandwagon. Just look on eBay how few of them are up right now. It's because they don't know about these. People aren't looking them up. I remember these when they first came out. I had some of these. We read them in college during breaks and things like that also. So I know most of these magazines. Voodoo alone is one that you should be looking for. It's a key one here. They always, always, always go for some good money. This is number 4, $275. This is something you'd probably find at a garage sale more than anywhere else, or at a local live auction. I'm fairly lucky on local live auctions on stuff like this. Now here's another newer one. Details. There's many issues of this from what I remember. Some of these are fairly scarce. It's like a designer. Limited run to some extent. There's 9 issues here, various 9 issues. There's more than this if I remember right, but $320 for this one. Details. Now, people have talked about and asked questions on journals and industrial style magazines. Now, this is one of the few exceptions here. This is screenwriting, and it goes into Hollywood insider information. Some of these type, like work-related ones, are good, but the standard journal like Science and things like that just aren't as popular as you would think. This has insider talk on some of the movies that were very popular. Some of these do have labels, but either way, $300 for 35 issues of these. On average, they're $20-25 a piece. If you're in California, some of the folks here are, you have a better chance on finding these. There's not a lot of these other than in big cities. That's where you're going to find these at, like, say, a auction or something again. Now, here's another one that would be insider. This is done for people who are musicians, technically, but you could buy these on the newsstand. I remember this line because it covered rock stars, so they sold not just for guitar people, but for people who wanted the posters and the full pages on your Ozzy. The whole works. All the crew from the 90s are literally in here. It's not a ton, but this is the first issue. $500 on this one. Now, all the guitar ones aren't worth a ton of money, but most of the 80s and 90s heavy metal, now heavy metal or AOR, album-oriented rock, all those type of things are going to be on the rise right now. I see a big rise going, and that's what's been going on for the last, say, 5 or 6 years. All of the heavy metal stuff is going up. Now, you can go in and look AOR, type in AOR on eBay, and then Terapeak and Pop Psych. Now, I'm going to talk about Terapeak on a YouTube video, so I would recommend you probably look out for that one also. I use it, but it's sparingly usable, and I'll show you why. I'll show you the drawbacks in that video too, but nothing secret on it or anything. But let's move on from here. Now, I've had this one, and I have one right now in-house. You're going to see it in the video. It was from one of the hauls that I did. Paid $1 for it. This one routinely goes for, say, 75 or maybe up into the 100 range max I've seen. But in the last year, or maybe even a little less than the last year, this one has started to shoot up. $300. This is not the top I have seen for this one. I've held on to 2 copies for a little while. These are good ones to get. This is the #1 National Lampoon magazine issue that I would recommend other than issue #1. This one shows up. I've bought binders of these in the past too and found them in there. Bulk lots of these. I'll buy maybe $100 worth of just National Lampoons just to get this one magazine, because then I can piece out the good ones and then sell this one on its own for some good money. Now, again, I've talked about this maybe a year or so ago, maybe somewhere in that range, or at least showed this one before. And back then it was 75 to 100. Now it's $200 to $300, almost any one. There's magazines like this that are on the rise. Now, I have hold on to a couple of these just because of the trend that's been going on with this one here. You couldn't do this on a modern day magazine. It would probably get banned by censors. So this is a good one here, and it's after code, so this one shouldn't have been allowed to be propagated like this. But anyway, this is like the key one here. There's key issues of a lot of magazines, and I'm going to show you another key magazine. Now, this is an adult-oriented Cavalier. It's something you run into, but it's not a highly collected magazine in the adult industry. This one, though, has a Stephen King story in it, and I've talked about that before, where stories by famous authors before they had a book out or right after their first book usually go for some good money. One of the first Game of Thrones stories is in a magazine, and I touched on that in the last book magazine BOLO right here in Patreon only. Again, these are just here for Patreon, so don't be sharing these. I'd hate to see these in another video by someone else talking about them due to the information shared here. This is for you guys, so again, I please bear with me and try to not share any of this information. Suffer the Little Children, though, is in this one, so $270. I've seen it for more than that on a couple of occasions. You got to know some of the magazines because of that. Now, Easy Rider does have some adult-oriented content in it, but it's minimal. It can be sold on eBay without listing in the adult section. And as it went on later on, it had some more adult-oriented content in it when it was more acceptable to some extent. This is issue number 1, though. The first few years of this, 71, 72, 73, I still look for and still will buy. Some of the other ones in bulk lots will sell also, but this one's usually missed because some people don't like the content. I like motorcycles, so it doesn't bother me at all. Skateboarding I've talked about. These are majorly on the rise right now, if you did not know. Anything skateboarding has had a resurgence to some extent, especially the 80s and 90s. You know, we're 20 years going out from these era, and they're hot right now. So just keep an eye out. I've talked about them. Surfing magazines are pretty much the same ballpark, but skateboarding now is overtaking surfing magazines. I've been into magazines and things like this for 15, 20 years, so I watch the trends. This is the trends I'm showing you. What's going on right now, the biggest trend in magazines are gaming magazines from the 80s and 90s. Off the chain right now. These, maybe even a year ago or 2 years ago, weren't going for much at all, $1 or $2 a magazine. CD editions usually go for more money. You don't have to have the CD for it to be worth decent money. This is 12 issues, $240 basically. Again, gaming magazines, 90s, even into the 2000s, some of the PC-related gaming magazines will go for some good money because gaming now is away from PC because the quality now on home units like PlayStation, Xbox have taken over, so most people would rather just get that version of it. You don't have as many people doing PC gaming as you used to, in all honesty. Electronic Gaming Monthly, another one. This is issue number 6. I remember these coming out. Another perfect example of some of these earlier game magazines. They're hot, and I do mean hot. $234 for one single one. So you got to dig into these. These are out there right now. This is probably the best chance of getting some good money you will find on these type of magazines right now. So again, this is what's hot right now. Last year, the year before, these were not recommended. They weren't that hot from my personal experience. Some went here and there, but overall, these are climbing. Now, here's another magazine that I usually buy anyway if it's in bulk, Nickelodeon. Another missed one, and I talk about inserts. There's a Life magazine with some baseball cards in it. This is one that's a modern day one that most people don't think about. This has a Tiger Woods card inside of it. If you get the card in there, that's what you want. It still will sell, but nowhere near the amount without this card stuck in there. And it's a sheet. You got to perforate them. Don't separate them from the sheet. Just FYI, leave them just like this. Scarce one in this book right here. So $275. Not many of the Nickelodeons go for good money, but this is the one you want. This is the issue, I think, other than maybe Nickelodeon 1, that will get you the most. Vibe magazine, anything with Tupac in it. Any of these early Vibes from the 90s, 94, I guess these are starting in. These all go for some good money. Every single one of these. I run into collections of these because where I go, a lot of the places will sell soul in northern records like that. I like this category. There is quite a few of this type of music that I listen to as well. You know, I am very open to Beastie Boys are one of my favorite groups of all times. You know, I do have Tupac in my music index, so just FYI. 240 bucks. Now here's a single edition. It's got Suge Knight in it, so and Snoop, Tupac, the whole works. This is a really good one here. The shot alone, the poster for that shot is worth some money also. So 280 on this one. Any Vibe one I usually buy because I can usually get some money out of almost any Vibe magazine. Most all 90s ones of those go for good money. Now, there's not a lot of these newer comic books that are really worth getting after, but this is the newsstand edition with the barcode. $54 average. I've seen this up to 75, almost 100 in several occasions. Futurama. These were, you know, mass produced on a line. Bongo does The Simpsons as well. It was more a kid-oriented comic book line, most of these on Bongo. But these are good hot items. They're going to be going up, in my opinion, just from what I've seen, because they've steadily rose a few dollars here, you know, month by month, year by year. So that's another good one there. SpongeBob, Since the Death of the Creator, 60 bucks. This one has peaked. It's going to be hitting up in the $100 range, would be my opinion. I've seen slab versions of this go for over 200. So now a cartoon line that I like is Rick and Morty. We watch Rick and Morty. Oni Press has been around. They do have, like, Jay and Silent Bob and some other magazines that they did. Oni does quite a few. They got lucky on this one here. It's a smaller comic book line, so there wasn't a ton of these made. It's a low run, low printing on these. But many people don't realize that this is worth anything. It's newer. It's 2015. This is a hot one, and I figure, in my opinion, this is going to keep going up, especially if he cancels or doesn't do any more Rick and Morty after Season 4. Luckily, Season 4 is on its way. I haven't heard any results in Season 5 yet. For those who know Rick and Morty, it's pretty good. There's a few episodes I don't care about, but overall, it's a really good series, in my personal opinion. But this is a perfect example of modern-day comics that you are going to see that most people think is junk. These show up in kids' comic groups with, like, Power Rangers and things along that line, in all honesty. I've run into this one a couple of times recently, as well as in the past when we didn't think it was worth that much or it wasn't worth that much. This one hit up on the price in the last year or two, so first year or two it came out, it wasn't worth very much at all, in all honesty. $280 on this copy. Now, a slab version of some of these can go for $800-900 or better. This is a specific one here. This is number one. This is a variant. This one was recalled because of the content on the cover, if I remember right. You will find these. These are out there. So $850. It's not slabbed. This one's slabbed probably $1,400 or better, honestly. And here's another one. This is a variant set. They have two different versions of the same one. One looking one way with one character, and one looking the other way as the other character. And there's a artist that does toys where you can see the insides like this. And this is all another thing that's hot fad, which I'll be touching on as well soon here. 700 and basically 70 bucks on this one. 28 bids. Any of the Rick and Morty I nab up. Even if they're not worth something right this minute, I'm just going to set them aside because I really think that this one's going to, you know, skyrocket. Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon. These are good ones to get. Anything by those guys. They did other series too. There's even a video, I think, on YouTube on the creation of, you know, these characters, because they started off in other cartoons that they did on their own without any, you know, funding. Now, this one I bring up because Tomb of Dracula, if you didn't know, and I'm sure there's a couple of people that know, Blade's first appearance is in Tomb of Dracula 10 from 1973. A lot of people don't realize Blade, Wesley Snipes' character, good movies, I've seen them all, goes back to 1973. I'm bringing this up, and I know this is an older comic book, but there's a reproduction of this comic book that most people just price out for $1. And I found quite a few of these. There's 2 or 3 versions of this, though, but if you see the reproduction, they don't all say not for resale, but many of them do. 27 bucks may not sound like a bunch, but I put $57.50, and that's usually what I get on this one here. There's not many repros or rehashes, I would say, to get. And again, there's 2 or 3 versions of this. Doesn't have to even have that black border. I've seen a version that didn't have the black border, nor did it say not for resale. And it looks almost identical to the original ones. Blade is still pretty hot, and from what I understand, there's a reboot coming out. So I would nab up these repros too, these reprints, any one of the 3 or 4 that there are out there. And obviously, if you find the original one, this one's going to be going up too. So maybe something you want to hang on to or slab if the rumors that I've heard are correct and there is a reboot coming out. This one has some issues up there in the top left, in the bottom right corner is missing part of the spine, and it still went for almost 600. So I really think this is one you're going to have to be looking out for, especially in my opinion. People don't follow the trends, so to speak. Like this one here being a repro, it's still not trending, but you can crank these up by listing it with a higher price, and you're going to be selling these in a higher price range. Now again, with trending, this is a trending one here. I know Walking Dead comic books are still fairly high. The series floundered, especially with Rick leaving and all, but what many people didn't realize, that Rick did sign a deal, if I'm not mistaken, it's for 3 feature-length movies to be produced to show what happened to him, and that's going to be the hot ones to get, and that will hopefully push another resurgence in the prices of these going up. Now, this is the first Michonne, issue 19. They come straight for the comic books. I never read the comic books, which was part of The Walking Dead's problem to begin with, that they stuck to the comic books, only trying to hold on to the comic book folks, but a majority of the people, from what I see, got into Walking Dead on season 2, and they weren't comic book readers. I didn't read the comics. I didn't even know it was a comic book at first. I liked the series, and they catered too much to certain things. And I'm not trying to diss anybody who likes comics or anything, because I collected them as well. But just trying to show you that sometimes they flounder because they only centered in on less than half the audience in most honest aspect of it. So anyway, these are still hot to get, but I think they're going to be shooting up a little bit if these movies do come out, as I was told. And I watched a special from AMC where they talked about that. So it was part of Rick getting out of the contract was to do these movies to explain the helicopter and the whole works in the last one. So I stopped watching it after the big cliffhanger for season 7, I think it was, with killing Glenn and Abram. I just wasn't me anymore. They just kind of went off in too many tangents. I liked the farm and, you know, the surviving. I didn't really care about to see the Whisperers, any of that kind of stuff. It went way out there in my book, you know. But anyway, good magazines, or comic books, I should say, to get. First issue stills going up. This was one you might want to slab, I would say, because there's some real good ones up there. Preserve it for the future. These are going to, you know, take some dings and wear when you have them around, not bagged or slabbed. So this might be one you might want to slab. $1,000 on this one. They go up as high as 3 in slab condition, or even a little higher. Now, NYX I talked about, but this is on the rise. Now, I think there's something coming in with some sort of tie-in that they're going to rehash this, if I remember right, too. So I do follow some of the magazines, and the rumor was that something is going to be done with this. X-23's in here. It's a character, first full appearance. There was a snippet, I think, in another one of the issues, or another Marvel. It was a limited run. It was only for a few years they did this. This one's on the rise. It's one of those ones that's trending high. And I don't remember if it was art-wise related to who did it or something, but it's one of those ones you want to look out for. Most of the NYXs are good, but this is the one that I would look out for. Just remember this. I mean, it doesn't matter even what it's about. I don't really care, most of these, what I shoot out there, what they're about. This started off on a tangent. I've found some boxes, and I shot a video on a box that I've had of comic books that I purchased in the 90s and have still been in that box sealed since like 99 or so. We've moved and stuff, and it's just been boxed all these years. And we're going to open it here, and I'm going to show you. Maybe we'll have some good gems in there that you can find, like these type of things. I have Harbinger 1, so this is one of the gems that should be in the box. So there are some issues like this that are some good money. This one did several other comic lines. Valiant, I can't remember, but it was Valiant Vision. It was a 3D thing that they did, and there's a whole line of some sci-fi characters that they did also. So not many on the Valiant label are worth some money. This is one of the ones that does very well. There's other ones, again, as I said, but we'll touch on some of those. This is one of the key ones, a few $100s a piece for this one in high grade. It's coupons are inserted in here, First Faith coupons included, but anyway. And strange editions and things like that are another area that I look for. Zombie Tramp. I know it may be a strange topic for some, but any of the Zombie Tramp line goes for some money. There's some others by the same artist. These are like lowbrow, some people call them. I like some of these lines like this, the stuff you wouldn't expect that would be worth money. Maybe even like a Tank Girl line this reminds me of, which was a comic as well, if you didn't know, and a movie. Who knows where they're going with some of these? Some of these zombie comic books of the 90s, 2000, even up until this modern day age right now, 2018, 2019, still go for some good money. So don't discount these privately pressed or limited run magazines or comic books of any type, in my opinion. We'll touch on some more of these, but for now, that's what I have. Hopefully this gives you some ideas on some trending, again, PC gamer magazines from the 80s and 90s are what you want to be looking for. Hot, hot, hot items right now. Let's hop over there right now. Well, there you are. Hopefully that will be helpful for you. Those are things that you will run into. I am almost sure of it. On pretty much all the videos that I've posted, I've had people run into these items since then and snag them up, so I know these things are out there. So, and as always, any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. You've got the community tab as well to leave photos or anything like that so I can look at them, critique them, or help you in another way. I am working on the critique for a store here also, so that will be coming out very soon. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's support.